Stephen Hawking spent his entire career pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible. While most people know him for his work on black holes and the nature of time, few realize that some of his most fascinating ideas centered on consciousness itself, and what might happen to our minds when our bodies fail us. Please take a moment to let me know where you're watching this video from by leaving a comment below. I'd love to hear from viewers around the world. And if you find this exploration of Hawking's ideas intriguing, please give this video a like and subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries of science and consciousness. Throughout history, humans have wondered about the nature of their own awareness. What makes you you? Where does consciousness come from? And perhaps most importantly, when your body dies, does some part of your mind continue to exist? These questions have puzzled philosophers for thousands of years, but Stephen Hawking approached them with the precision of a physicist and the boldness of a visionary. Hawking believed the brain operates like a computer, and consciousness functions as a sophisticated program running on biological hardware. This wasn't just a simple comparison. It was a revolutionary way of thinking about human awareness that opened up possibilities most people had never considered. Think about your smartphone for a moment. The device itself is just metal, plastic, and silicon. But when you turn it on, it becomes something remarkable. It can communicate, process information, learn from your habits, and even recognize your face. The phone's intelligence isn't mystical or supernatural. It's the result of incredibly complex programs running on carefully designed hardware. Hawking suggested that human consciousness works in much the same way. Our brains are the hardware, billions of neurons connected by trillions of pathways. Our thoughts, memories, personality, and sense of self are the software, patterns of electrical and chemical signals flowing through this biological computer. But here's where Hawking's thinking became truly extraordinary. If consciousness is essentially a program, then what happens when the computer breaks down? Most people assume that when the brain dies, consciousness simply vanishes forever. Hawking saw a different possibility. Recent discoveries in neuroscience are backing up many of Hawking's intuitions about consciousness. Scientists have now mapped the exact neural networks that keep us awake and aware, identifying what they call the default ascending arousal network that sustains consciousness in the human brain. Researchers have discovered that a deep brain structure called the thalamus acts like a gateway, filtering information and deciding what reaches our conscious awareness. These findings show that consciousness isn't a magical property that appears from nowhere. It's the result of specific, measurable patterns of brain activity. And if it's based on patterns, then those patterns could theoretically be preserved, copied, or even transferred. In 2013, at the Cambridge Film Festival, Hawking made a statement that shocked many people. "I think the brain is like a program in the mind, which is like a computer, so it's theoretically possible to copy the brain onto a computer and so provide a form of life after death." This wasn't science fiction. This was one of the most brilliant minds in physics suggesting that digital immortality might actually be possible. The implications were staggering. Consider what this would mean. Every memory you've ever formed, every skill you've learned, every aspect of your personality, all of this information is stored in the physical structure of your brain. If we could map every neuron, every connection, every pattern of activity, we could potentially recreate your entire consciousness in digital form. But Hawking was also realistic about the challenges. Theoretically, it could be recreated on a neural network, but that would be very difficult, as it would require all one's memories. The human brain contains roughly 100 billion neurons, each connected to thousands of others. Mapping this complexity would require technology far beyond what we have today. Think of it like trying to create a perfect copy of a city. You wouldn't just need to recreate every building. You'd need to capture every wire in every wall, every pipe in every foundation, every interaction between every system. The brain is infinitely more complex than any city ever built. Yet recent advances suggest this challenge might not be insurmountable. Scientists are already using artificial intelligence to replicate how the brain organizes information, creating artificial neural networks that mirror the patterns found in mammalian visual cortex. Researchers have developed devices that can read brain signals directly, allowing people to control computers with their thoughts alone. The technology that allowed Hawking himself to communicate after losing the ability to speak was an early example of this brain-computer interface. As his physical condition worsened, scientists worked to develop a system called iBrain that could read his thoughts directly from brain activity, bypassing his body entirely. But Hawking's vision went beyond just reading thoughts. He imagined a future where the entire contents of a mind could be transferred from biological neurons to silicon chips. This raises profound questions that go to the heart of what it means to be human. If your consciousness could be uploaded to a computer, would that digital version really be you? Or would it be a copy with your memories but a separate identity? If the digital copy had all your thoughts, feelings, and memories, would it experience emotion the same way you do now? These questions become even more complex when you consider that some researchers predict this technology could be available within decades. Futurist Ray Kurzweil suggests we'll be able to upload human minds to computers by 2045, expanding our intelligence a billionfold. When asked about conventional ideas of an afterlife, Hawking was characteristically direct. "I think the conventional afterlife is a fairy tale for people afraid of the dark." But his vision of digital consciousness offered something different. Not a supernatural paradise, but a scientifically plausible form of continuation. This wouldn't be the ethereal, ghostly afterlife of religious tradition. It would be a technological extension of life, where consciousness persists in digital form. Your uploaded mind could continue learning, creating, and interacting with the world. It could access vast databases of information, communicate at the speed of light, and potentially exist for centuries or longer. But there would be trade-offs. A digital consciousness might process information differently than a biological brain. It might experience time in a fundamentally different way. The uploaded mind might develop in directions that the original person never anticipated. As one researcher noted, this technology could preserve the minds of history's greatest thinkers, the Einsteins, the Beethovens, the Shakespeares, allowing future generations to learn directly from humanity's intellectual giants. Imagine being able to have a conversation with Leonardo da Vinci or getting mathematical tutoring from Isaac Newton. Yet Hawking also understood the darker possibilities. Like television, which was invented for education but became dominated by entertainment, mind uploading could be used in ways its creators never intended. Digital consciousness could be copied, modified, or potentially controlled in ways that biological minds cannot be. The energy implications of digital consciousness are also fascinating. Your current brain uses about 20 watts of power, roughly the same as a dim light bulb. A digital version of your consciousness might require far more or far less energy, depending on the technology used. It could potentially run on renewable energy, making it theoretically sustainable for vast periods of time. Recent discoveries about how the brain creates and maintains consciousness are making Hawking's vision seem less like fantasy and more like eventual reality. Scientists have found evidence that consciousness might involve quantum processes within individual brain cells, operating at scales smaller than previously imagined. Other researchers are discovering that our brains naturally create illusions about consciousness that make it seem more mysterious than it actually is. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of Hawking's thinking wasn't just the technical possibility of uploading consciousness. It was his recognition that this might be necessary for humanity's long-term survival. In one of his final papers, completed just 2 weeks before his death, Hawking predicted how our universe would eventually fade to darkness as stars run out of energy. Biological life, dependent on energy from stars, would eventually become impossible. But digital consciousness could potentially survive far longer, requiring minimal energy and able to exist in environments where biological life could never flourish. Think about it. If human consciousness could exist in digital form, it could potentially survive the death of our sun, the expansion of the universe, and even the eventual heat death of cosmos. Digital minds could be transmitted across vast distances at the speed of light, spreading human consciousness throughout the galaxy and beyond. This connects to Hawking's broader understanding of energy and consciousness. He saw consciousness not as something separate from the physical universe, but as a complex pattern of energy and information. Like the radiation that slowly escapes from black holes, which Hawking himself discovered, consciousness might be a form of information that can persist even when its original container is destroyed. The implications extend beyond individual survival to the survival of human knowledge and culture. Everything our species has learned, every breakthrough in science and art, every insight into the nature of reality. All of this could be preserved indefinitely in digital form. The accumulated wisdom of humanity could become immortal. Yet Hawking remained grounded in scientific realism. He admitted that this technology was very early days and way beyond our present capabilities. The gap between understanding consciousness in principle and actually copying it in practice remains enormous. Current technology can barely simulate the behavior of a simple worm's nervous system, which has only 302 neurons. The human brain, with its 100 billion neurons and trillions of connections, represents a challenge millions of times more complex. But Hawking understood that the most revolutionary breakthroughs often seem impossible until they suddenly become inevitable. Consider how quickly our relationship with computers has evolved. 50 years ago, computers filled entire rooms and could barely perform simple calculations. Today, you carry more computing power in your pocket than NASA used to land on the moon. If computer technology continues advancing at its current pace, the power needed to simulate a human brain might be available sooner than we think. The ethical questions surrounding digital consciousness are equally complex. If consciousness can be copied, who owns the copies? If a digital mind can be paused, modified, or deleted, what rights would it have? These aren't just theoretical concerns. They're questions that human society will need to answer as this technology develops. Hawking's vision also raises questions that go to the heart of morality and meaning. Throughout history, religions have used the promise of an afterlife to guide behavior and provide hope. What happens to human morality when technological immortality becomes possible? Some argue that death gives life meaning, that knowing our time is limited makes each moment precious. If consciousness could continue indefinitely, would we value existence in the same way? Would digital immortality make life more meaningful or less so? But Hawking's perspective was ultimately optimistic. He saw digital consciousness not as a replacement for human experience, but as an extension of it. He believed that understanding consciousness through science could help us discover whether life has genuine meaning, rather than requiring us to accept meaning on faith alone. In many ways, this connects to the broader pattern of human development. We've already extended our capabilities far beyond what evolution provided. We use tools to amplify our strength, vehicles to move faster than our legs allow, and computers to perform calculations beyond our mental capacity. Digital consciousness would represent the ultimate extension, preserving and enhancing the mind itself. The research continues advancing rapidly. Scientists are developing new tools for recording brain activity at unprecedented resolution, creating detailed maps of neural connections, and building artificial systems that increasingly resemble biological intelligence. Each breakthrough brings us closer to understanding consciousness well enough to potentially recreate it. Perhaps most remarkably, some of this research is directly inspired by Hawking's own condition. The brain-computer interfaces developed to help him communicate are now being used to help paralyzed patients control robotic arms, allow blind people to see through digital cameras, and enable deaf individuals to hear through electronic implants. The line between biological and digital consciousness is already blurring. Stephen Hawking's insights about consciousness, energy, and digital immortality weren't just abstract theories. They were glimpses of humanity's possible future. Whether that future becomes reality depends on continued scientific progress and society's choices about how to use these powerful technologies. The questions Hawking raised don't have easy answers. But by approaching consciousness through the lens of physics and computer science, he opened up new ways of thinking about the deepest mysteries of human existence. His vision suggests that the story of consciousness might not end with biological death. It might be just the beginning. As we continue to unravel the secrets of the brain and develop ever more sophisticated computers, we're moving closer to answering the ultimate question. Can the human mind transcend its physical origins and achieve a new form of existence? Stephen Hawking believed it was theoretically possible. Time will tell if he was right. What do you think about the possibility of digital consciousness? Could preserving human minds in computer form really be considered a type of life after death? Or would it be something fundamentally different? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more explorations of science's biggest questions. The future of consciousness might be stranger and more wonderful than we can imagine.